Yes, people, we're here once again on the Big Bad Station, and of course we've got the one and only Richard Rowe ready to speak to us and join us. Okay, and of course he talks to us about some difficult topics, so please be aware. However, if you want to get in touch with myself, if you have any questions about these particular topics, you're more than welcome at katrina.birchall@outlook.com. So you know what, Richard, it's all over to you. Let the people know who you are and a little bit about yourself.
Okay, excellent. Well, very glad to be here. I've got a lot to get through. I don't know if I can cram it into 30 minutes, but I'll give it a whack.
Okay.
Okay, when most people talk and tell you things, you have to understand where it comes from to interpret what they're saying. Many people will come from a vested interest, have a fixed point of view, and therefore you need to understand that if you then want to evaluate what they're saying. So, who am I? I'm white, English, British, lived all my life. All my family are white. I'm a retired accountant. I worked in industry, so I'm absolutely bog standard local sort of chap. About nearly 7 years ago, I decided that I hadn't done anything for people outside my immediate family and friends, and I needed to contribute. So I joined the Coventry Refugee and Migrant Centre, and I found that although I was fairly experienced in some aspects of life, I didn't have the skill or the knowledge to help the people I was meeting, and this was quite challenging. I had to learn a lot of new things, and I had to unlearn a lot of new things. And for me, it's been very rewarding, and it's been like a 1,000-mile mental journey.
Okay.
I feel significantly enriched, and I feel I'm making more of a contribution now than I have at any time in my life. From where in order to understand what is here and now and today, you need to understand the broader context of who we are and how we got here, and how important we are in terms of ourselves and the world.
Yeah.
So I'll start off global, but I'm going to come down to much more specific things later. We have to look at the time and the life of the Earth, which is about 4.5 billion years, and then look at what we're doing. To me, in descending order of the most important things in the world now, the first one is climate change, the second one is wealth inequality, and the third one is dictatorships. Yeah. People may say, well, with things in the news, aren't dictatorships more important? But I would put wealth inequality, because if you change people's wealth, you give them options that they don't have. And we have more economic slaves in the world now than any time in history. Mm. So, the Earth is very old, and we're very new. Humans are tribal and also sociable creatures. We've found things in the ground and learned how to use them, but we know very little about how they interrelate. When we dig up the ground, we have little idea what the impact on the environment is. The earliest life forms created a world that could support humans, and they're still vital to our existence. Yet we are destroying the book of knowledge before we've read it. And to my mind, everything else is subordinated to that. So what are the lessons that we've learned? Well, if you look at humans and nations, and we look at history, we all have opinions and we have values about what's good and what's bad.
Yeah.
The reality, i.e. the facts, are all nations have shed blood in order to become nations. Mm. That's true of every African, South American, Asian, European country. That has always happened. And it's a question of imposing the will and making the group bigger. And by being bigger, they become stronger. Mm. Now, this isn't always very good. In terms of the values we have these days, it is a fact of life. That is how we have behaved. It doesn't mean we have to behave like that going forward. What it does mean is that we have the opportunity to learn the impact of our actions, and then if we are truly intelligent, as we'd like to think, and civilized, we have an opportunity to change our behavior. Now, this has many impacts. One example is reparations. There are the European empires, when they gave political freedom back to the countries that they conquered in earlier times, did many things which these days are considered immoral, outrageous, brutal, uncivilized. Now, reparations are a very, very touchy subject, and people have very strong opinions with full justification. My personal thought on this is that reparations are not payable if they have no effect on the life we live today. I think a good example of that is if you take the Vikings, they traded. They were seafaring people, and they went down to Turkey, they went over to Iceland, some people say they went to America. They certainly travelled around Europe, and they traded all sorts of things. One of the things they traded were slaves, and the capital of Dublin was established by the Vikings as a slave trading centre. Now, you can say the Vikings came from Norway, and therefore the reparations should be payable, but if you had a banner in Dublin or in Norway, people would think you're nuts, because it doesn't have an impact on the life we lead. If you look at places like Haiti, which was dominated by the French, they have an appalling history there, and that is impacting on the life of Haiti today. And in my personal opinion, that is absolutely, I think reparations would be morally the right thing to do. One of the things that many countries have done, the Russians at the moment are taking art out of Ukraine and taking it back to Russia. The Germans did it. The Europeans did it. This is quite common to human behaviour. Now, there have been discussions about should there be reparations or should the art be returned to the countries of origin. And a year or two ago, I thought, well, probably not. Niger, for example, has some very important historical pieces of art. And some of them were returned, but yet they need to be safe. You don't want them stolen because they are of value. They need to be kept in good condition so that they are there for future generations. But my attitude has changed with the things that I've learned, and in the way that it's changed, I think the art should be returned. The reason for that is Africa doesn't have a good, Africans in general don't have a good knowledge of their own history. And I think there needs to be a re-relationship between countries based on the values that we have today. And I think it would be a recognition of respect to actually return these works of art. Yes, there's no reason why we can't go and visit them and see them, enjoy them and learn about them on the internet, but they are actually not ours, and they are representative of another culture. And I think that should be I think that needs to be honoured. I think attitudes are changing, and I think that's very good. One aspect which is a major problem in our ability to attack the things in the world, our societies and power are inseparable. In other words, if you're in a village, you don't have much power. If you can become a town, you have more power. If you can become a city, you have more power, and then a nation. And therefore, if you look at the big nations of the world, that is where they have the power. The problem, one of the major issues that we have today is that these major powers give enormous power to whoever is in control. And it depends upon the values in our society as to how that control is exercised and how the people in power are controlled. And I'm going to come on to dictatorships shortly. What we need are shared values, and that doesn't mean we have to think the same thing. We're not the same, we have different experiences, and the way we survive has to be different to survive in our various environments.
Yeah.
But what we should do, we should respect those with values that are not the same as ours. That is perfectly legitimate, and it's actually important for a healthy society. We need the freedom to inspect the opinions of others, which means that you can exchange ideas and you can have an open debate in a way that we are restricted from in many ways. I'll give you an example. White supremacy. Yeah. It does exist as a fact in terms of the way people practice, but what people tend to do is they decide what they want to do and then they justify it. And in my personal opinion, some people may disagree very strongly, in my personal opinion, white supremacy does not exist. It's an invention by those people who want to justify their actions. And white supremacy is needed by the white supremacists, but actually, fundamentally, doesn't exist. If you take the biological variations of humans, there's more variation between different parts of Africa than any other two parts of the world. So some concept that because we use Africa as if it's one single entity, it's absolutely not. It's vastly changing environments, different histories, different cultures, different people, and it's a very, very rich place. Yeah. It's also got the highest resources in the world. I mean, Africa is a fantastic place.
Yeah.
So I think white supremacy, people need to be able to talk factually about white supremacy, because then you can tackle the arguments and you should have the freedom to actually decide what you actually think is true. Looking at the challenges of today, dictators are a major issue. And I wrote something about this in my story, Prisoners of Beliefs, and I'll just read this bit out. I wrote this probably 3 years ago.
Okay.
Dictators surround themselves by people and symbols, treating their citizens as children, controlling all media, convincing the people that the country will fall apart without them, and often attempting to retain control of an entire country by passing it on as an inheritable family asset. That's a quote from Al Jazeera. If unrepresentative groups can usurp power, deny a voice to the majority, silence any mechanism for open debate, and individuals suspend their critical faculties, the more likely mob rule will represent nobody. When mobs are on the rampage, there may be no rationality as to who is the next target. The spotlight could fall on any of us in the future, and we are all minorities in one way or another.
Yeah.
In the mid-19th century, a brilliant black orator came to Britain. I can't remember his name, it's really frustrating. And he said to packed audiences, if one of us is not free, then none of us are free.
Yeah.
And I think that's extremely important. In fact, attitudes are changing, and I think the West is beginning to wake up to its responsibilities. There was an article in the Financial Times on Saturday, and it was by a guy called Tim Mars, and he has been studying dictatorships for 20 years. These are just small clips, but I think it reinforces the points that I'm trying to make.
Yeah.
Quoting little extracts from it, he says, talking about dictators, typically these leaders are nationalists and cultural conservatives with little tolerance for minorities, dissent or the interests of foreigners, and at home they claim to be standing up for the common man. Strongman leaders need to be regarded as indispensable. The goal is to convince people that they alone can save the nation. The distinction between the state and the leader is eroded, making the strongman's replacement with a lesser mortal seem dangerous and inconceivable. India also took the strongman role with Modi, and the problem is democracy has been shrinking in the last 20 years, and the reason is the rise of dictators. And I think Europe is just beginning to wake up, and the West, to what the realities are. Another bit, he then starts talking about Modi from India, Xi Jinping from China, Putin from Russia, Erdogan from Turkey. They're all developing the cult of personality.
Yeah.
In that bracket, he also puts Trump, obviously from America, Kim Jong-un from North Korea, and Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman from Saudi Arabia.
Okay.
This has been tolerated on the basis that they would slowly change and learn, and we've given them the rope for them to do what they want. The last bit is strongman rule is an inherently flawed model. It cannot deal with the problem of succession. The last bit is the longer the strongman ruler is in power, the more likely he is to succumb to paranoia and megalomania.
Yeah.
Now, if you look at what Russia is doing,
Yeah.
Putin is becoming ever more isolated, ever more extreme, and he's getting to the stage where he trusts nobody.
Yeah.
And that's absolutely a major issue. Looking at other issues, energy costs are enormous, and if we stick by our principles and we then cut off the energy supplies from Russia,
Yeah.
then energy costs will be very, very high. There is no easy solution to that. We can try and increase supply elsewhere. We can go into the open market. We can then change our technology. These are possibilities. They're generally very slow.
Okay.
My personal opinion is they should let the price increase and then give direct financial support to the poor who just cannot pay it.
Okay.
I think the impact on humanity is too much. But you could say, oh, well, we just fixed the price. But when they fixed the price and then the market price went up, businesses went out of business, and then the government stepped in and the taxpayers paying.
Yeah.
Somebody on £60,000 a year, if their heating bill goes up by £1,000 a year, it's an inconvenience. But it's not a destruction of their life. They have alternatives.
Yeah.
If somebody is living on the state or is on low wages and their heating bill goes up, they cannot afford to heat. And they keep talking about heating or eating. And, I mean, these are human social problems impacting on us now. And if we don't protect the weak and the vulnerable, you know, we're all ill, we go to hospital. We're all babies, so we need to be looked after. We all get old, so we need more support. And people have problems throughout their life. This is about social values. And I think that, one of the problems is that if you look at consumption,
Yeah.
you'll hear in the news hundreds of examples where people are complaining about their ability to survive.
Yeah.
Reality is consumption in the West is too high.
Okay.
And but clothes and food are too cheap. And that's one of the reasons why we have so many economic slaves today.
Yeah.
Houses on the other side are too expensive, either to buy or to rent. They're ridiculously high, and the reason is the government have dropped interest rates, so now you can borrow a lot, and people are pouring money into houses because they keep going up in value, which forces them to go up even more. But those without a good income and security are the ones who are really suffering.
Yeah.
They need to raise interest rates, house prices will fall, and there needs to be a rebalancing of society. The troubles in Russia and China mean that the West should be developing partnerships with Africa, not on the old colonial basis, but as partnerships. I mean, that's very important. How am I doing for time? Well, I'm okay. I haven't lost
good.
everything.
No, you're
Now,
good.
some interesting developments. A friend of mine called Abdi, he's from Somalia,
Okay.
and he's a really good guy. I've been to presentations at the Garden Festival in Coventry and various other things, and he wants to establish an organisation that will operate like a bank but differently, and it's a way of funding entrepreneurs in Somalia who are very poor.
Okay.
He's basing it on a book written by a guy called Mohammed Yunus, and he started this principle, and he gave loans out to entrepreneurs who are desperately poor. So people in Somalia who may have $5 worth of stock, which is nothing, and sit there for 10 hours in the hope of making $2 profit, so they can buy another $5 the next day and support the family on $2 a day, and they take all the risks. They're away from their family. If they have more money, they can buy more stock. They can make more profit, and they can support their families better. He wants to do this in Mogadishu, and he's already got a team of people who are working free of charge, and he's asked me to join the team.
Okay.
So I'm going to find out more about that, and if it's of interest, then I'm very happy to help, and also to tell people about it.
Yeah, that'd be great.
But I would say that the biggest problem in the world at the moment is the environment. The destruction of the environment will make everybody's life terrible, and there's no escape from that. That's really appalling. But I don't want to. I mean, these are not. The idea is not to depress everybody, so they say everything's hopeless. The idea is that people understand and they can make decisions and change their actions to improve their own world. But I'd like to finish on a love story, which is in my book, Prisons of Beliefs, so that it's not all horrendous. There are horrendous things inside the story, but it's a challenge to everybody who reads it to look at their own life and their beliefs. And also there's hope, because where you have a challenge, you have a hope that you'll overcome the challenge and your life will improve. Yeah. So I'd just like to read a little bit. And the storyline is there's a family Hindu family who've come from India. They come over to this country. The father works, his cousin owns an Indian restaurant. He works in the kitchen with other Indians. He comes home to his Indian family in his Indian community. Yeah. He sees no reason why his values should change. His daughter goes to school and meets lots of different people and finds life really exciting. She then meets a boy called Andy, who's a white English boy. Okay. But she can't go home and tell her father, because he will decide who she marries. Andy's problem is that his father is a member of the English Defence League. Okay. And hates all foreigners and blames them all for whatever his problems are. So the boy cannot go back either. Okay. Now, this is a great problem for them, and this is a short scene. Scene 22 is called The Love Poem, and it's where Andy has to try and tell his girlfriend, Mohini, how he feels about her and how important she is to his life. Yeah. So anyway, here we go. Andy is captivated by Mohini, a vision almost too delicate to touch in case the world might damage perfection. Her eyes are where heaven is, a place he wants to live in forever. The gentle way he holds her hand connects their feelings in a display of open, unquestioning commitment, so profound that both want to believe that love's gift is absolute protection from the world. And yet, Andy is deeply troubled that for the time being he has to keep his love for Mohini hidden. Nobody is like his Mohini. Having found his soulmate, she must never be lost. She must understand how important she is to him. But how? He goes to the library and finds a line in a fusty old poetry book that nobody reads. But it captures what he is trying to say, and surprisingly quickly he fills in the rest from his heart. Yes, that is what he must say. He hides the paper in his schoolwork and returns home, full of hope and fear, too nervous to eat or rest. The maddening hours of night are too long. these precious moments are for dreaming of their future, not wasting on sleep. At school the next day, he waits for a quiet moment, and without warning, coyly pushes the piece of paper face down towards his centre of his love. Words hurriedly glued together with love attempt to describe the contents of his heart. With mounting trepidation, Andy stops breathing and waits. Looking slightly puzzled, Mahini casually picks up the paper, turns it over and reads. Borrowed words can always say, far better than can I, of love and dreams and wishful things that last until we die, of times relived and words unsaid, and feelings running deep. In life's deep ruts we chain ourselves, our paths may never meet. And yet, in all life's twists and turns, things are not what they may seem. Tread softly, Mo, tread softly, for you tread upon my dreams. Moments hang. Andy's world is suspended. This torment is unbearable. She must be reading it again. Their full significance slowly percolates and coalesces into a profound realization as Mona Lisa awakens and slowly offers a tantalizing, wonderful, gentle smile. Her beautiful, soft brown eyes meet his and deliver the message he so desperately needs. Now drowning in joy, their love is forever. She folds the poem, puts it in her school book, a secret that must be concealed from both families. With no solution, they only have their total commitment to each other. It is all that is possible for now, but for the moment, it is enough. And his heart desire is to scoop Mahini up and protect her from any harm the world can devise. Surely pure love cannot fail. Neither of them can imagine fate concocting an unspeakable cruelty of such foul malevolence that it would crush one of nature's beautiful creations and threaten Mahini's very existence. That's the scene. I don't know how that comes across.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, definitely. It's a powerful kind of snippet of somebody's life.
Yes, I mean I need to describe at a global level as the environment that we all live in, and you have to go through the facts in order to put your life into context.
Yeah.
And then, but at the end of the day, you're dealing with ordinary individuals. I'm an ordinary individual, so is everybody else.
Yeah.
But we're also unique and special, and I mean, we are the most complex thing that we are aware of in the universe.
Yeah.
And that is a great privilege for us to learn about where we live and who we are. And at the moment, you take capitalism, you take democracy, you take religion, you take many things, and these have advantages, but they also have disadvantages. And if we as tribal groups cannot work together, we will actually destroy the environment that supports us. And that is the most important thing. We have to learn how to work together. And people like Putin and what he's doing to Ukraine is all about selfishness and power, and it denies the opportunity for people to develop and experience what they can within their lives.
Yeah.
And it is very, very serious. But if we destroy the environment because we can't work together, then nothing else matters.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's it. I know it's a bit of a lecture, but I mean, these things are very important. And to me, this is the most important job I've ever had in my life.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. I definitely can hear it. I can hear the passion and the honesty in your voice. 100%.
Yeah, I mean, because I know people. I had a friend who was homeless and a good bloke, gentle giant, and he died in the streets of Coventry, in the centre, between two buildings, keeping out of trouble, and his body wasn't discovered for 3 months.
Wow.
And he's as nice as me. He's a nice, lovely guy. And this is happening in our community, and we can't just shut our doors and ignore it.
Yeah, 100%.
And if we think that we ignore things and we'll be okay because we're okay at the moment, we then guarantee failure in the future.
Yeah.
And that is what we have to learn. And I think what's happening in Ukraine is a huge wake-up call to the West. But I know Syrians, I know people from African countries, and also Ukrainians. And some people are bitterly angry at the way the West is opening the doors to Ukrainians and failing to be reciprocal, and they're hostile to people from other countries.
Yeah.
And all of that is pandering to people's ignorance, because people do not understand enough to realise how vulnerable we are. And I'm talking about the people in the West, the people who are well off, the people who live ordinary, simple lives, and they say, well, what can I do about it? And it's got nothing to do with me. And they probably deserve it because they're corrupt or whatever. And that does not shine the mirror back on us and our corruption. And it's not that we're bad, but there's a famous saying that in order for evil to prevail, good men just have to do nothing. And that has been our problem. Yeah. And my hope is that that Putin gets defeated in Ukraine. It then has it sets a moral standard that other dictators will take note of, and we then start to think about all the other societies. You've got Yemen, you've got lots and lots of places where appalling things are happening, and we tolerate it as if, well, what can we do?
Yeah. And
the answer is, if we do nothing, things will get worse.
Yeah.
And one of the aspects is consumption is far too high. I've got lots to say on that, but not tonight.
No problem. You know what? It's been a blessing to actually hear again from yourself and listen to what you have to say as the point of view from your book. What would you like to say as your final words?
I would like to say I hope that I have learned a lot, and my attitudes have changed because of the things I've learned. Okay. And I hope if people read the book that it gives them things to think about. They don't have to agree with everything or anything. But if they disagree, what's the basis? And what you'll find is that they start quoting their belief system. Yeah. And that's absolutely fine. But you then need to say, well, given this problem which is in front of you, of which we have evidence that this is causing a lot of damage, does your belief system need to be modified? Does your behaviour need to be modified? And the answer for all of us is yes, in some cases.
Yeah. 100%, definitely. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. And of course, for the people out there who want to get your book, how can they do that?
Well, I'm involved in other things, and as the things that are happening in Ukraine, I wrote about Putin in my book specifically 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And I'm getting more ideas and more evidence, so I'm modifying it. It's been on the edge of being finished for over a year, but I really need to get it out as soon as possible. There are people who are interested in it and saying, yeah, that's great. And, six people have read it, and the comments that they've made, I'm absolutely mind-boggled. I mean, I've never written anything. I'm not a writer. I'm not an activist. I've never joined a political party. I'm just looking at the evidence of the world we live in today and saying we're heading for catastrophe. We can see it on the news every day. And if we do nothing, then we know the outcome. And it will be a massive reduction in the world population. there'll be a shortage of resources as we destroy the ability to support ourselves, and it will be the poor and the weakest who will suffer the most, but everyone will suffer in the end.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's a sad note, but it's an optimistic note. I'm saying there's a challenge before us. We've got to do something about it.
Yeah, definitely. 100% agree. 100%. You know...
No, well, thank you very much.
Anytime, you're always welcome to come on the show. It's always a pleasure and a blessing. And of course, we'll speak to you again.
Thank you very much indeed. There will be some quite a lot of publicity when the story is published, so people will be able to get it, I hope, from local bookshops, definitely from Amazon. I may set up a website as well. And also local charities have also said, yeah, we're very supportive in what you're trying to do. And, you know, friends and family and other organisations have shown some interest. So people will definitely be able to find it.
That's great to hear. Absolutely great to hear. Looking forward to having it out there and getting a physical copy myself. That would be great.
Thank you very much. Yeah, you can have a signed copy.
Oh, that's even better.
Signed by the author.
That's no problem at all. That's fantastic. And again, thank you for your time and coming onto the show. It's always appreciated.
Excellent. No, that's great. Thank you for having me.
No problem. Speak to you again soon.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.